Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Silicon Zeros. In the last episode, what did we do? Well, we finished the dang game, that's what we did. Anyway, we finished this part, which seems to be saying, hey, you got past the sort of easy part, don't feel too bad if you can't finish all the puzzles in the next part. Is anyway the impression that I got from that. And we did an aside or two here. I think we did negate in like no time at all. And faux reg was interesting. We did it in 14 parts. It says the ideal is 6. And I did check with Pleasing Fungus in between episodes, and he says, yeah, you can do it with just the parts that you have now, but you have to think about them differently. He remarks that everybody solves this puzzle differently. It's one of his favorites. Early playtesters solved it in more than 20 parts, and he didn't notice the 6 module solution until like months after he wrote the puzzle. So I don't feel so bad about missing it. I didn't feel bad anyway, but now I feel less bad. So how hard are the things over here? This is just 3. It's not like outrageous. And there's still multiply to contend with. I still think I want to put off multiply. Everything, those 4 red stars are real scary. Let's see what's going on with parallels. This is the story of Sam, apparently Dana's son? Or, I don't remember if it just his replacement. Not his son, his replacement. I don't know. Anyway. Hello, Sam. Did you know it's been a year since you replaced Dana as our chip designer? Feels like just minutes ago. Yeah, okay. Well, someone's gonna figure out how to copy our high-speed processors soon enough. So we need to design even faster ones before they do. I had an idea for a new parallel approach. See if you could turn it into a design and execute all instructions quickly. 44 over 2 ticks per instruction, plus 22 more ticks. So, what? So, I guess I have no way to do extra readers or anything. So they're giving me these 2 readers, and I assume that the point here is that I can execute these in parallel, right? And do it in 44, yeah. So fine, this all seems pretty simple. You could just make 2 copies of what you had before if you wanted, right? That would be a bit high on modules, I suppose. Could you do better? You could... So if you had only 1 writer, and you tried to write to it a different thing each cycle, I don't think you'd actually be accomplishing anything with having 2 of these. It'd be just the same as the previous solution. So hang on, let's go look at the one where we were just doing 0 mems, right? Actually, that was before we even learned about microticks, wasn't there? Milliticks? 0 zeros? Zeros. No, not this one. Instructions was where we got all these 0 mems. We just wrote this, right? So we could copy this and paste most of it into the answer for this, basically. Why is that red? Num adder, right latch. I don't know. So, okay. We have this. But I think what we want to do is actually add 2 to this every time. And this drive the top one, but put another adder in to drive the bottom one, where we add one. Like this. So the idea is we can yeah, I do need to have a 2 and a 1 there. We only need one clock. We can just have it go twice as fast. And then we need 2 writers because those are particularly slow, and 2 readers because those are also slow. Don't have any registers. It would be nice to have a register that I could fill with this stuff, right? Because we're only given 22. And if we put all of this stuff in the critical path, plus a writer in the critical path, it'll just be way too slow. So I think that we need actually 2 latches, just one for each of these, basically. I was going to use this to store, of course, the address that we're writing to, right? But latches are initialized to 0, which means that we'll overwrite instruction 0 at some point, which is not what we want at all. A register is really, really the thing that I want here. Oh no, of course. The address that... Okay. What we're reading here isn't just an address, it's an instruction. So we need an instruction decoder here, right? And I think we probably want it on the right because this stuff adds up. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe we want it on the left. No, because then we'd have to store multiple. No, we'd only have to store one thing either way in our latch. Yeah, so if we want to make this multiple stages, we can't just have this reader connect to here. So what's the path to this? Not much, but the path to this is, we'll take 15 to do something, and it takes about 16 to do this other stuff, right? So I think that's, we want the latch here. Then we'll have 15 plus 2 is 17, and on the other side, 12 plus 4 is 16? Yeah, 0 is like nonsense, so that's fine. Like that. So once we've read the value, we store it in a latch, and then the next cycle we take this. I feel like this is not at all, see, memory slot there, not at all elegant. And we'll just take a 0 here, like that. Right? Like, having multiple copies of everything, I don't know, I guess it's the point, is to teach us that you can do that, but it doesn't feel very good. So what happens when I test this? First of all, we're within our time budget, but not by much extra. so as this goes, we read... Our latch is stabilizing, but that doesn't matter. We are stabilizing what to read from these, address 0 and 1. And once that's done, we're storing the instructions into these registers. Great. Oh, a disaster occurred. We wrote garbage into memory because we tried to decode 0 as an instruction. So this is why I wanted a register instead of a latch. Because a register would have nil. I don't know how I can get a nil out of this. We could decode the instruction before storing it in the latch. That would be fine. But then, the part we store would be the destination. And therefore, the original out value of the latch would be written to here in the first cycle, which means we would overwrite slot 0. Which I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to do. We would be replacing this. That would break our intended memory. I'm gonna try it, I guess. I don't think this is actually gonna work. Right, so now we'll have a different problem, which is that we'll write the wrong thing to memory as opposed to corrupting it. We're at 22 though. Yeah, so it's now stabilizing at 0. Not what I wanted at all. But maybe it's okay to write over the instruction segment? No, it's very upset about that. That's in red. Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's not the answer. What can I do to prevent writing nonsense? I need a nil from somewhere, or else I need to do everything in one cycle, which I don't think I can do. Right? Like, the minimal path here is 3, 15, 23... Oh... 35? 39? Maybe it is that you can just do that, because you have 2 of these things. You can afford for each half of the pipeline to take up to 44 instructions, right? So forget this latch completely. If I had a register, I could go faster, but I don't. I only have a latch. And I think I can just do this. And our clock cycle has gone up to 32, which kind of stinks, but we can afford for it to be as high as 44, so why not, right? So now we're reading values, we're decoding them, now the writer is stabilizing, and we're writing exactly what we wanted to. I feel like I used both too many parts and too much time here. But apparently I was exactly right on both of them. Well, who'd have guessed? Nicely done, Sam. Just what I had in mind. I thought you ought to know. We've got a company-wide salary review coming up, and I put in for you to get a 5% raise. You've been working here a while, and we wanted to give you some recognition for what you've done. Well, thank you, Carol. That's very sweet. Puzzle select. So we can do collisions. Nightmare, huh? Let's look at this before we decide what to do. Always a pleasure to see that ugly mug of yours. Carol sent me down to manufacturing earlier. Rumor says the workers aren't happy, so she wanted me to get familiar with things, just in case. Anyway, I saw your parallels design down there. Interesting. Why not execute all instructions using MSET instead of zero mem? So it's a similar sort of problem, but asking us to set specific memory values. Well, that's fine, right? Set memory slot number 10 to 1. Why is this hard at all? This looks totally normal. This looks like just the same thing as we just did, but why is that hard, right? We just take all of this and we copy it, and then instead of just wiring a 0 up, we can do even better, right? We lose a module, and we wire this value up to, you know, target or source or something. So that seems easier to me, not harder. What am I missing? So paste this in, we get all of it. And indeed it is all MSETs. So we can just take this, and what is an MSET? It's got a source, which is the value to set to. So we're just going to do this, and this, and delete this, right? That's it? Probably a little clearer if I pull this out, right? That it's connected to two things. There we go. So hang on, back. We have 46 milliticks, and we're only spending 32. Like, I don't get it. So we're reading the instructions, we have those, it looks like a memory set. Now the decoder has stabilized and it says set memory slot, oh whoops, not this one, but this one. Okay, try again. It says memory set slot 10 to value 1. Okay, so is the race the fact that there's these guys? Memory slot 11 to 3 and to 4? So the trick is making sure that we don't have a data race here, I guess? So like this'll work. Well, actually, it might not. We'll send this one into it first, basically. Is that right? Maybe that is what we want to do. The one that is first will be sent. We'll get through here faster because it has. It doesn't have to go through an adder, right? So this one will. But they both happen at the same time, right? The writers don't write just because they've stabilized. They write when the clock period is over. So what happens if these two happen to be the same? They conflict, right? We try to write a 3 and a 4 at the same time? Maybe that's what makes this complicated and hard. So I want to know what's going to happen in this cycle. When we have two different writes writing a different value to the same slot in the same time period. I predict a question mark or something. Yes. I see. this is more interesting. And that's why we've been given more parts. So we still want to parallelize this. But we have to ensure that we only write a single time per cycle, right? Or, well, can we do better than that? It's usually fine to write twice per cycle. It's only a problem if both writes are to the same address. Yes? Okay. So I think that's relatively easy to fix with just a comparator on the two addresses and an input or output selector, I guess an input selector on this guy's address that that makes its address be something useless if there's a race. I think that's all. We still don't have registers, but we have the equality tester, which is the important thing now, I think, and selectors as well. So this guy should always be written exactly as normal. We only have to change what happens up on this half. With, I suppose, an input selector fed to this. Where its input 0 is this, and its input 1 is just any source of nothingness, which in fact can just be nothing at all. We'll just leave it like this. And we'll feed it with a comparator of the two destination addresses, I think, is what we want. Yeah. Put it here or something? Here? I can't find a place that makes any sense. Alright, well that's at least a little bit legible. So that's the idea, is we're going to compare whether the two addresses are writing to the same place. If so, we'll get a 1, meaning don't do this right at all. If not, we'll get a... And if they're different, we'll get a 0, meaning go ahead and do this right. And we're still well within our time budget, and we only added 2 modules, which I think is pretty respectable. Assuming that it works. Wait, are we within our time budget? Oh yeah, 35, okay. So we are now stabilizing our readers. Here come the decoders stabilizing. Now we're comparing the two destination slots. And that's very quick. We determine that it's 0. They're not the same. Therefore, our input, we're stabilizing this to 10, I guess. Yes. Go ahead and write a 1 to slot 10. That's what we wanted. And an 11 to slot, or a 2 to slot 11, I suppose I should say. So So that's all jolly good. We wrote the stuff we wanted. Now it gets interesting. We're letting the instruction decoders stabilize here. They have stabilized. Now the comparator will compare them. Determines they're the same. It sends a 1, which, once that's stabilized, should send a nil? Yes. We're writing a 3 to nowhere and a 4 to 11. As soon as it's done stabilizing. Great, and then we write a 5 to 12. Right? And a nil to nil, that's fine with me. It's funny, I'd never thought about the workers before. Stuff just got made. For all I knew, our chips could have been made by robots, or slaves. Though if we had slaves, I'd make Carol Pharaoh. Well, who knows? She's going places and the board loves her. Maybe she'll be wearing that Pharaoh's hat soon enough. I think this is a reference to an earlier version of Silicon Zeros. I saw in one of the devblog entries that a much earlier prototype had been themed with like what looked like Egyptian, you know, workers dragging around blocks of numbers in the sand or something. So maybe this is a reference to that. The slaves and Pharaoh. Anyway. So that was interesting. It was a little bit of a twist I didn't think about. Is like, oh, obviously this is just the same as the other thing. But there's this little twist. You might now be writing 2 different values to the same place, which makes me wonder. Did we ever have tests that wrote to the same place here? And it just, like, resolved because writing 2 zeros to the same place is fine? Like, if the 2 values are both the same, then there's no conflict, maybe? I don't see any in here. I mean, I'm obviously not going to search through all 50. But I assume it would have popped up a bit sooner if it were a problem. Interesting. So it's not yet well defined for me whether it's okay to write the same value to a location twice. But alright, fine. So that one didn't feel so bad. It was hard. I think 3 stars would have been fine. 4 is like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just overestimating how hard 4 stars ought to be, and maybe multiply will be easier than I expect. But I guess we'll find that out some other time. This was enough puzzles for one episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.